Welcome to this lovely Wednesday afternoon, where we have panelists from Bombay, Bangalore, Delhi NCR, and this is a co-hosted panel discussion by BAA and Fiber to Fashion. So we thank Richa, Bansal for putting this together, and also thank my team, Rohini, Nitin, and all the support team at BAA. Very, very briefly, BAA is the Buying Agents Association of India. We are a new young organization. We were formed just 4 years ago. And as I was telling my fellow panelists, it's been a very wonderful journey. The most exciting thing is actually getting to know other people in your industry, because we all vaguely knew about each other, but we kind of avoided each other and nobody really spoke. So we're getting to know each other, and we're getting to know the liaison officers as well. And it's absolutely fabulous. So BA is extremely happy to have all of you here today, and I look forward to getting to know you and reconnecting. It turns out that I do know some of the people on the panel, and we look forward to a very vibrant discussion about, you know, what's going to happen as our economies reopen and we reevaluate our businesses, we reevaluate our marketplaces, and we see what it is we need to stay strong, get stronger, and grow our businesses further. So thank you very much, everybody. Richa, Rohini?
I'd like you to speak about the textile show that is coming up at EPCH.
Okay, just
the virtual show.
Virtual show, absolutely. So as I think we all know, this is the year of the virtual show. I think Ambiente in Frankfurt was probably the last big international show to happen. Everything from March, late February, March onwards has been cancelled. We're not clear yet whether October shows will happen. So in India, EPCH has pioneered the virtual show. I know that APC and Carpet Export Promotion Council are also planning to do virtual shows, because this is the way forward. So EPCH has started. They had the first show in the first week of June, which was the fashion jewelry and accessories. And they were extremely pleased with the turnout. And starting on the 15th of June is going to be the virtual textile fair. So IGHF, virtual textiles, I think it is going to be even better. There's been a lot of learning. The BAA was also very involved in giving feedback, trying to help improve the platform that they're using. I can already see that their collateral is getting better. So we, BAA will be making a big push to get people here. Both our clients abroad as well as our merchant teams will be visiting, and at the same time giving our vendors very necessary feedback on what they need to do better, what they need to do differently, because it's now all about the virtual experience. So as you walk into the booth, what's that experience? So, it is about having good videos there. It's a good opportunity to tell the story, whether your story is organic cotton, whether your story is handmade, or whether your story is a very compliant, organized factory. You have the platform to put all your visuals there, which is fantastic. And then in the middle of July, I think the 13th of July is the big IHGF Delhi show, which covers, in fact, all of the sectors. So it will be home decor, furniture, textiles, carpets who are registered with IHGF, and some fashion. So it's an exciting new world. And I know both Milan and Paris have cancelled their fashion weeks this summer, and they are planning virtual shows. So we're all going to be getting used to looking at stuff online, and I think it's very, very exciting. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. I think we are going to go virtual and real very soon, simultaneously, both sides. And I think that what is the most exciting part of the export industry, and especially in apparel, which I have been here since 40 years, is that we seem to take to technology really fast. In the industry, I think we are the first people, from telex to fax to emails, and now to this new way of working. I think we're going to adapt to it really fast, and we're going to bring home to the buyers a similar situation that existed before, but in a new bottle. On the other side, we do look for government support. Our factories which we work with are looking for government support to make the MSMEs more easy to function, more liquidity in the market, more infrastructure required for the industry in terms of ports, in terms of couriers. So we should look at the government needs to look at many things for the textile industry, which is now going to be working both for the exports as well as the domestic market. It's not about hand-holding, it's about structuring it in the right way so that we can progress faster and bring more jobs into the market and bring a better economy for the country. So looking at that objective, we've brought together a wonderful panel. Thanks to Richa. And I'm so happy to see all of you. Welcome again. And I'm going to now put the ball in Richa's court and relax as she's going to anchor the rest of the show. Thank you so much and welcome again. Thank you. Richa? Richa has some issues?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Okay.
Yes, we can hear you. So now...
Tell me. Thank you, Rohini, for the introduction. Let me begin with the, let's begin with the webinar, so to say. Let me start with Dr. Koshy. Dr. Koshy, are you?
Yes, very much here. Good
yes,
afternoon.
Yes. Okay, okay. My question to you is that the textiles, I think I'm having a problem here. The textiles, apparel, fashion industry, has had too many ministries to deal with in our country. And some, of course, cannot be done away with, for instance, finance. Should we have a finance ministry? Will that work? What is your opinion?
Well, I think it has got many dimensions to answers, but, since we are on a webinar, I'll make it very short by narrating 3-4 critical points. So I welcome all the, people have joined from different parts of India and abroad to this webinar. Welcome. It's a very important industry we are talking about. And the McKinsey's Business of Fashion report, in fact, called it Rewiring the Fashion System. And I'm very happy that this particular webinar has the title Resonating, Rewiring the Home Front, which is about India's domestic market and production. How do we look at this? I want to look at it from two major industries which are contributing to employment and GDP. One is IT industry, which is about $160 billion. And the textile, apparel, retail, not retail, but apparel industries, home furnishing included and handloom included, would be about 140 billion. And when you look at the 160 billion ITES BPO industry, it is employing about 3.9 million people. And it's contributing about 7.78% to the GDP. And if you look at the textile apparel or T&A or, including the fashion and luxury segment, if you look at, it is employing about 45 million people. And it is also contributing about 4% to the GDP. Now, when you look at these two industries, you can see that one is more urban, the other is urban and rural, heavily also tilting towards rural in terms of value addition techniques which come from rural areas to many other things which come from rural areas. The Honorable Prime Minister in 2017 Textile Summit in Gandhinagar had coined a term that farm to fiber, fiber to fabric, fabric to fashion, fashion to foreign. He said also about the foreign market, but now it is about also the domestic market. And in the recent announcement, we have heard about going local. So now let us look at this entire fashion system in the country. There is a division based on raw materials. We have focused on jute, we have focused on cotton, we have focused on wool, we have focused on silk, we have focused on synthetic fibers, we have focused on cellulosic, we have focused on man-made. And then there is manufacturing dimension, handloom, powerloom, khadi, mill-made, and it goes on. And now, of course, fusing and bonding and various new technologies. So in this process, what has happened is the entire segment, entire fashion or the textile apparel sector looks very confusing to a consumer. A consumer or a buying agency, for example, would like to consume fashion. And that word came into India in 1986-87 when National Institute of Fashion Technology was set up. The first textile mill was set up in India in 1854. So though we have a 4,000 years of heritage in textile industry, the actual word textile started becoming popular from 1854. And that is a 19th century word. And that reflects raw material and less of value addition. And fashion and lifestyle are all about value addition in terms of design, in terms of innovation, in terms of branding, in terms of now digitalization, which is also one of the key points the BOF report says that digital escalation and innovation imperative are going to change the dimensions of this industry. So my argument has been that, while the Ministry of Textiles need to get rooted in textiles, it also needs to add the word fashion, as it added very foresightfully in 1986 by bringing National Institute of Fashion Technology to the scene. Time has come to actually galvanize the youth of the country, which is 50% of the population, women of the country, which is again 50% of the population. Both these needs to get attracted to this segment, this industry, in a very new fashion. That is only possible if the ministry, which is the common platform which everybody looks up to, becomes, I have written this about earlier also, as creative manufacturer apparel, India as a platform for the whole segment to be shown as the global leadership position. So my proposal in simple terms is that India should look at this entire fashion ecosystem as a seamless, from concept to consumer, from farm to fashion, from fashion to retail, the entire segment in a seamless fashion. Then it will look at from increasing the employment from 45 million to almost maybe another 200, it can add easily another 20 million people, and it can actually have a large population generation, and also add to the GDP as ITES industry did, with limited number of people being employed. So this is the crux of the argument. And if you look at the other point which is coming into play, is how do we look at the word itself? You look at one example. The Telangana has promoted a mega textile park at Kakatia Mega Textile Park. I was there in the function which was launching this some time ago. And I was talking to the industries commissioner there. He was telling it was, while they are able to give in such a quick time the greenfield venture to take off, still they are finding it difficult to attract people of investment. Simply because it is it is rooted in an industry which is looked upon with the word textile as a sunset industry. The moment you bring in fashion, it becomes a sunrise industry. And it brings in the whole new group of players, of designers and technologies and digital players and aggregators and Flipkarts and the Mindras and the Jabongs and the Amazons to that point. That is where we need to now do, because we are looking at positioning India into a global leadership position in the fashion supply chain, which is $2.5 trillion industry across the world. And we are just doing a small part.
All of that, yes, but there is also another issue, that the industry needs to come together in a unified manner to settle the differences. This is something that, you had written in one of your articles also for us at Fiber to Fashion. And, the industry needs to settle the differences, the one-upmanship, to position India on a new global platform where it can take a leadership position.
Yes.
Look at Bangladesh as example, how they spoke up. There was just one voice that was speaking for that country, for the textile industry in that country. Within India, how much of that is feasible? Do you think that we need a new industry body?
See, I don't want to get into the politics of, fashion or the industry. What I want to say is that Bangladesh depends heavily on apparel exports for its entire foreign exchange earnings and its own economy. And therefore, it's important and it comes easily for them to collectively have one voice. But textile industry in India is a very complex, complex system. And therefore,
isn't that all the more reason to have one unified voice?
Yeah, therefore, the word fashion, as it aroused interest of the youth and the women in the country and started becoming a magnetic word to get the people interested in the sector, it is also time. The unified voice only can come if you reposition, re-engineer, reboot. All these words are now coming into use after the post-pandemic time. And there is a good reason for approaching the ministry, which is often open to new ideas, to actually absorb this entire system, which they only initiated in 86, 87 with the National Institute of Fashion Technology. It has completed 33 years. Obviously, time has come to add that into the magnetic word, into the name of the ministry itself, which will unify many people to come together to really work for the next level of growth.
Sure. you know, since this is
May I
related,
interrupt a little bit?
Sorry?
May I interrupt a little bit?
Yes, please,
The
please.
same
please.
subject?
Yes.
You see, in my opinion, and I've been telling this at every forum, that we have so many bodies in this country and we don't see eye to eye and we don't have a common point of view and we are never able to make a policy which is good for the entire industry. It's time we liquidated many of these councils and make one council for the whole textile industry, fashion or otherwise. And I think that's probably a sane way of doing something right for the textile industry in this country. As it is, we have 3 ministries. There's no point in us having 7 bodies to talk about it. So I think a more unified, holistic approach to policy making should be adopted. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Great.
Excellent, Jagdish.
Yes. Yes.
Very needed. Very, very needed.
Since we are talking about textile bodies and everything, let me turn my attention to Mr. Mehta. Mr. Mehta, you know, the apparel business, both manufacturing and retailing, cannot possibly run the way that it had so far. In which areas do you foresee changes happening immediately, even as we speak? And in which areas do you see manufacturers, brands, retailers cutting corners? How smart will business get? And then, of course, there's the other part of it is that there are many aspects to either fixing or revamping the home front, whichever way one chooses to look at it. At what point of the value chain would you like to make your first intervention?
Thanks. So you really asked me 3 questions,
Yes,
I think.
Number
1, what are the immediate changes that are happening
before you get on to that question, if you could also respond to what Mr. Hinduja said and what Dr. Koshy was saying.
Well, I guess they are right. But I think one has to keep in mind one limiting factor, particularly since you referred to Bangladesh. In Bangladesh, as Dr. Koshy pointed out, there is only one industry, which is the apparel industry. The rest of it really is of no major scale. Whereas in India, you have right from the farm up to fashion. You have your yarn manufacturers, you have your spinners, you have weavers, fabric manufacturers, garments. So there are bound to be certain areas in which there will be conflict of interest. With one body, it's going to be difficult to sort of combine and take into account the conflicting interests of all these sectors. As a concept, yes, I think it's a good concept, and I am with Jagdish on that. How far it will be practical, I am not so sure. We have made a small beginning. I think it's called NCTC, National Committee for Textile and Clothing, where all the major associations, APC, CMAI, CITI, various other associations, we have formed a national committee which makes joint representations wherever there is a commonality of objective and commonality of interest. So we did get together during the time of GST, we did get together during the time of certain appeals to the government. But there will be areas of conflict which you cannot avoid. So as a goal to aim towards, yes, a good idea, but it's going to take a long time. And I'm not even referring to the politics of it, the personality issues of it. I'm not even going into that. I'm talking purely of the structural aspect of it. Good goal, difficult to achieve, but worthwhile trying in an informal way, if not in a formal way, which is what we have tried to achieve. So coming back to your question to me, what are the changes that I think we are seeing right now? I think ever since we learned about management, whether it was from Peter Drucker or from Dr. Koshy, we've always been told, don't think of today, think of tomorrow. Whether it was in terms of building up our infrastructure, whether it was in terms of building up our capacities, our team, our business strategies, we were always been thinking about tomorrow. Don't restrict your thought to today. Think about what is going to happen tomorrow, where you want to be tomorrow, and plan accordingly, strategize accordingly. I think this is going a sea change right now. And I think the mantra today is forget about tomorrow, think about today. First, see how you can survive today, how you can overcome this whole period, this whole era of COVID and immediately past COVID. So I think that's a very major change that is happening. And I think most of the organizations, whether they've shifted in retail, for example, whether they've shifted from a brick and mortar format to an omnibus format, in manufacturing, whether you are selling through offline stores to moving to online stores, as you yourself said, from seminars and meetings, you've shifted to webinars and Zoom calls. So all these things, changes are happening because it is happening as of today. Coming to the second part of your question, which is what is going to, where are we going to cut corners? Now, I think, cutting expenses can very easily be misconstrued as cutting corners. Not all reduction of expenses are really cutting corners, because when you use the phrase cutting corners, you are somehow implying that you are cutting off a necessary expense just because you want to reach a certain goal faster. So I don't think that is the situation, but I think I would like to divide the current expenses of any organization into three blocks. One, you have your core expenses. Second, you have your support expenses. And third is what I would call the enhancement expenses. So your core activities, let's say of a fashion brand, is your designing, is your production, is your merchandising. You can't really do much about these expenses because your whole organization depends on these activities. Then you have your support activities, such as your accounts, your audits, your HR, and so on. And third is what I call the enhancement expenses. Now, what are these expenses? These are your brand building exercises, your team training and skill development exercises. You might be having your brand sponsoring some events or some activities or some NGOs. Now, these are expenses which I look at it as enhancing your brand or your organization's credibility, your presence, your sort of communicating your personality to your consumers. These are enhancement expenses. I personally believe right now and perhaps going forward for about a year or so, I think these are the block of expenses that are going to be cut first. I think people are not going to be looking at so much of what the consumer will think of their brand or how to enhance your presence. But basically, as I said earlier, we need to survive. So I think these expenses are going to be the first on the chopping block. The second expenses, the support activities, you can't do without them, but certainly hard questions will be asked as to if you've got 10 accountants, for example, today, can we make do with 7? If you've got a 20 department HR team, the 20 HR team department, can we make do with 15 or 10? So these are going to be questioned, these are going to be reviewed, these are going to be looked at very harshly, but you can't do without these. And as I said, your core expenses are those that you are going to continue doing. Yes, you will look at it very carefully, but this is going to sort of remain as part of your expenses, which you cannot do much about. So basically, I think these are the expenses, and these are the steps that you will be taking in the immediate and coming future. where would I see some of the interventions and some of the major sort of changes happening going forward? I would say, I think the biggest change that is going to come about, and I think Christine might agree with me here, I think as an industry, we have paid scant attention to productivity. And I'm not just talking about your production capacities or productivity in terms of your factories. I'm talking about productivity in every aspect of your business, whether it is your sales team productivity, whether it is your advertising productivity, of course, your factory productivity and so on. So I think as an industry, we have not paid adequate attention to this particular aspect. And that's what I think people are going to be having to do. And if I was intervening, then maybe this is what I would look at very closely. The second area where I would like to sort of bring about a change is, particularly when I'm talking about the domestic industry, is the business model that we've built up, which is evolving around excessive credit and excessive inventory. I think we seem to believe that the only way we can do business is to provide credit to our customers and to keep more and more stock, so that at no point of time do we go out of stock. I think this business model will have to change, as indeed the business model where the retailers of today have been reduced to merely playing the role of a landlord. That they provide you a certain infrastructure, they provide you with a certain ambience, and then it's you and your brand, you and your product, you and your salesman. You go out and sell, you pay a certain rent to your landlord, and that's about it. So I think this, again, this whole sort of consignment model or sale or return model will have to be re-looked at. We will have to learn to live with doing business on your own strength and not because you extended a 6-month credit period. You'll have to learn with developing and evolving models so that you can keep the minimum amount of inventory and not yet go out of stock. So these are, I think, some of the major changes that I see forth coming right now, immediately, in the near future, and in the long-term future. Yes, Richa.
Right. Let me turn my attention to Chandrika. Chandrika, how do you see the accessories export market in the near future? To offset any loss on the export front, the domestic market itself would have to grow to absorb that much shock. So is that even possible? Chandrika, are you there? Hello? Oops.
She's there.
She's there. Chandrika, did you hear me? I don't see her. Should I repeat my question?
Maybe she's, give her a minute or two. In the meantime, go on to the next, Richa.
Okay. Let me turn my attention to Mr. Hinduja. Are you there? I don't know. Yes, you're there. There has always been a direct correlation between affluence and spending on innerwear. The hosiery innerwear market also has a huge unorganized sector component. Do you see big companies from the organized sector going aggressive at a time when consumer spends are expected to dwindle by the day?
You see, I am a little different in my opinion of Rahul's opinion, I would say that. You see, the way I look at it, in a business, I go with what he's saying, core expenses, support expenses, and then what I would call the attack expenses. That is my weapons. So in a market, I would probably, having got my merchandise and product correct, I want to be on the offensive in the market. I want to know when my competitors are weak, how can I go around and gain a point here or gain a percentage of market share? So my opinion would be at this time, especially the media rates are going to be low, and that you can have plenty of deals in cornering some media, some valuable media options. So I would say that yes, a big brand should make it a point to go out and sell strongly, advertise strongly, and make sure they are there wherever when a product is bought or sold. So I think that's would be my approach to that.
Sure. Chandrika, I'll come back to you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can now.
Yes,
Thank
yes.
you. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So here's the question for you. How do you see the accessories export market in the near future? To offset any loss on the export front, the domestic market itself would have to grow to absorb that much shock, financial shock. Is that even possible?
Yeah. So, Richa, I think we all are in a new way. We're all seeing our life in a new way. It's a new world for all of us. And I think what I see now post-COVID, I think the lack of just a social contact or just public gatherings and everything, I think this will be the accessory. People will be captivated more towards more accessories, which are low in cost, and also it's low in cost because finances have also been impaired. So I see a lot of growth and demand here. And secondly, the other thing I see because of the migration of business coming from China, because as of now, accessories has been a biggest market for China. So I would say for us as manufacturers and agents, we all need to promote stable businesses that are financially strong and also which are ethical, and we should focus more on sustainability. So I can only talk about my company. At FAO, our mantra has been to drive sustainable growth in terms of materials and teams. So I think we are continuously working and driving towards sustainability amongst our people and instilling them with sustainable ownership. And I think this is how it is, and I see it. And as everybody has been saying, we all need to have a very holistic and a mindful approach in today's world. We don't know our tomorrow. So I think we have to just wait and watch and see how we all work together in unity. And I do agree, and I've been hearing all this. I think it's a very nice, it's a very, very good question. I've been hearing it that, to have another ministry for textiles or fashion industry, because just for the upcoming craftsmen as well as for the talented budding designers. So I think that's my take on this. So anything else?
Let me now, I'll ask, since we are talking about fashion, accessories and all of that, let me ask Pallav a question, who's the co-founder of the India Beach Fashion Week, has stores in Goa, the Como Collective and all of that. Pallav, tell me, designers, particularly the young ones, everybody's been a harried lot, but of course they've been also a harried lot. So how can designers find their way through the current mess unless they are working with exporters? Designers have to make a living from the domestic market. What would be your advice to them? Pallav, we can't hear you. Unmute your video.
So as of now, the way things have been, at least for the young designers, I'm purely representing the young designers community as of now. And I think that the young designer community is very aloof from all the discussion that we are having right now about textiles, about exports, about APC, about CMAI, and all of those things. What has really happened is the young designers community has followed one line of path, which was doing shows, doing styling, doing a great glamorous event, and just being out there. And they said business would just happen. They would have their own set of clients who would come to them, and they just thought business would just happen. They never focused onto the real side of business. Means, what are the things that we should do to actually build our business and make it robust? Now when this entire, this whole COVID has happened, and today when I talk, I'm representing almost 2,000 designers of the country, whether it is through our store Como Designer Collective or through India Beach Fashion Week. I just feel that they are in a very, very Hello, can you hear me?
Pallav?
Yes,
Yes,
I just
you're
lost
there?
you.
Ha, ha.
Yeah. So I just feel that they are in a kind of a situation where they need that holding hand, because most of these designers were working on very low inventories, they're working on very low production capacities, they didn't have funds to hold on, and they didn't even know what is this MSME fund, they don't know how to even go out there and apply for loan, how to get investors to build their businesses. So I personally believe that this particular community which is there today, who pass out of NIFTs and NIDs and so many different colleges every year, they really need a big time support. Somebody needs to hold their hands, because I talk to them every second day and third day, and they are the people. I'm sure the people who are on the platform today are very experienced and they have large size companies and export, but these are the guys who are not at all, they don't know what to do next, except their creativity side of it. They make great collection, they make great, they have a good brand, they do great shows, but they don't know how to build their businesses. This is the answer that the industry needs.
Right, right.
If somebody could,
So,
I'm sure there are so many panelists here who would like to
Richa,
talk
I'd
about
like to interject. So
Yeah, sure.
Pallav will look at, as he's the younger generation now, you're
Yes.
looking at the designers getting more skilled in finances, more
Yes.
skilled in developing manufacturing, and the assistance to them and the knowledge to them. So basically, this requires skill. I think that even the industries that are, I mean, we've been here for so long, we feel that the youngsters and the designers who are young in the business definitely need that input to be able to help themselves to what is offered in the business. I would agree with that. Yes, Richa. I think
Yes,
we
what?
should
And there's
have
one more point.
some.
There's one
Yeah.
more point which I wanted to make, which is very crucial. Uh, there has been a body which we spoke about earlier. That okay, there's a Fashion Design Council of India, which is a body, or the body. I'm sure not many designers are, either it's difficult to get recognized by FDCI, or FDCI is not recognizing them, or there's something which is very funny about this whole situation because they don't know what to do. So if there's a body called FDCI, why not all the designers of this country are getting affiliated or supported or given any sort of knowledge? I'm sure if that's the body, but if there's nobody, then there has to be a body. That's what I think. If FDCA is only focusing on big designers and doing a show in Delhi, then I'm sure there should be a body to focus on the young designers as well. That's what I personally feel.
Okay.
May I interrupt here for a minute?
Yes.
Sure, sure.
Okay. You see, in my opinion, a designer is not necessarily a professional who's straight away a business person.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be, he or she doesn't have to be a business person. If I have passed out of a design school, I think first it's my job to hone my skills. I should work in design organizations. I should work as a designer for various brands, build my skills, come to a point where my skills cannot be challenged. I have a view on fashion. I have a view on life, which I want to express. That's the time they should start to looking for businesses, their own brands and things like that. And they should find a suitable mentor or partner, whatever, who can come with them and establish an organization that works. So I am not of the opinion that every 60 people that pass out of the fashion school should all open businesses and brands of their own the very next day.
Right.
Yes.
And
Okay.
I'm sure.
Yes,
and
but they definitely need skilling. I think that's
Yes.
what Pallav meant. In terms of
Yes.
education awareness, they definitely need. There's a long way to go to become an entrepreneur. From
Yes.
you can't just leave NIFT and become an entrepreneur.
Yes.
You need
yes.
a lot of skilling and information and knowledge of the industry. Pallav is feeling the need for the knowledge, which is not preparing them as yet. But that comes with experience, Pallav, actually.
Can I just
It
add
cannot be
one word?
normally taught at an institute.
Can I just add? Yeah.
Yes,
Sure,
yes.
sure. Yes, Dr.
Yeah,
Koshy.
just a one point that, Pallav has touched a very important point. And one of the things missing is the incubation system.
Right.
The National Design Business Incubator, which we set up in NID when I was director there in 2003, 2004, resulted in more than 100 major enterprises in design coming out. One of them made even 1,000 crore project on climate control clothing. So, unfortunately, though NIFT has taken about 33 years now, there has not been, as part of the mega textile park or the textile parks, the fashion parks or fashion incubators have not been envisaged, nor any kind of support given for the young designers coming out. Though Lakme Fashion Week, on which I have been on board for a long time, we did Generation Next as a brand to promote young designers. It did become successful, and Rahul Mishras and Najikets and Anuj and many people have come out of that particular initiative. But I feel what is missing in Pallav's, to answer him, is the need for Ministry of Textiles to create a very strong incubation system, NIFS, as an incubator itself, fashion business incubator. There, the young designers, before their creativity runs out, can actually start building on their own micro enterprises. And there I differ a little bit with, Jagadish ji, because the designers have this creative juices flowing out a lot in terms of when they come out of the institute. And by the time they, have already labored their life with various issues around, their creativity starts depleting. So it is a good idea if there are incubators in the open, resource system which large brands are now setting up. They can get attached to, like Priyadashini did with her, brand, or Global Deshi and many others have done that system. Priyadashini Rao and Mineral, for example. So all these kind of open innovation systems which are building around various enterprises like Reliance or Future Group or Lifestyle or whatever, they can actually absorb then these young designers with their own brand to be shown in the retail outlet, either on direct to consumer basis or online or e-commerce basis, as the case may be. And that is the way forward, I feel, for answering Pallav's question.
Very, very interesting points there.
Can I just give a contrarian point of view?
Sure.
I see where Jagdish is coming from, and this has been our traditional knowledge. In fact, Jagdish, if you remember, our director of Bajaj Institute, Dr. Basu, he made a very telling statement. He said, my students are better trainable to be good managers. They are not necessarily good managers at the point that they come out of the management institute. So I think this is what he was referring to, that when you come out of a fashion institute, it doesn't mean you can be a designer, but not necessarily an entrepreneur. But I think times are changing. The whole world is moving so fast. Today you have entrepreneurs who have started incredible startups when they were still in school. They've dropped out of school and become entrepreneurs. They've dropped out of colleges and become entrepreneurs. So perhaps the basic thought process is not wrong, but I think we all need to be prepared for a paradigm shift in the whole thinking process of these youngsters who feel that they can be entrepreneurs. Why not? I mean, the worst comes to worst, they can hire a good chartered accountant to manage their finances, or hire some consultant to help them in a couple of areas. So I think the time taken and the rule without exception that you cannot become an entrepreneur the day you leave your fashion institute, I think that will have to change. That approach will have to change.
Great. Vineet,
I wish to concede. I wish to concede the point made by Rahul as well as Dr. Koshy. I think both have very valid views.
Right. We are talking of skilling. Let me bring in Vineet now. Vineet, what will it take to get skilling off the ground? Companies in the organized sector, by and large, have their own ways of working on skills. Yeah. And the unorganized sector, however, is a sea and definitely in need of help. If you were to get started, I know you already are doing a lot in that field. How would you do it?
Thanks, Rohini, and good afternoon, everybody. I think the speakers before me have really set out a good foundation in terms of connecting dots and explaining both these sides. If you look at the unorganized sector, Dr. Koshy mentioned the potential that India has in terms of textiles and crafts and how many people we employ as a country. Now, the challenge there always has been a lack of market linkage, technology, organized skills, and there is a very important layer that is missing. The layer of the entrepreneurs or designers who are going to take this initiative, to help the people at the bottom of the pyramid, which is the largest number of people in this sector, to get their product linked to a market. Now, this is again, Rahul mentioned that, and Dr. Koshy mentioned, in NID and other institutes, the government already has initiated number of forums and organizations, and NID and ATDC and NIFT doing a fantastic job. The designers and the potential educated young crop that's coming out of our institutes needs to be given training or orientation to understand the potential they have to rise with their design capabilities. And Dr. Koshy, while their creative juices are flowing, entrepreneurship today is not as challenging as it probably was in 30 or 40 years ago, when getting a phone connection was a matter of days. So the idea of skilling the educated crop of youngsters and designers will certainly help take things off the ground, and again bring back employment opportunities and opportunities for the products of khadi, of handloom, to reach out to the market, which is also a very strong part of India's heritage, and therefore sustaining the employment that we so proudly speak of, and the numbers we speak of. On the organized sector, again, the garment industry is a very large industry. We've got large organizations that have crossed the large zone of maybe 800 or 1,000 machines, which have the wherewithal, the processes, systems, and manpower in place to run skilling on their own, or capitalize on the government support and fulfill their requirements. But coming back to the points discussed, that the industry needs to look beyond its personal differences or its personal views, and seeing a cohesive sort of approach. It is the middle level organized industry. I'm talking about the 200 to 500 machine exporters and organized manufacturers that may not have the wherewithal, the management, bandwidth, and the processes to be able to utilize the opportunities that are being given in the skilling space by the government. So if I were to, urge the industry to take this off, I would want the mid-level industry people to come forward and collaborate and take full advantage of what the government is putting forward on a platter. And this can happen very well in the form of a consortium. It can happen, there's a number of models, given what's happened and let's call this the COVID era. We're going to have a couple of years of a pandemic. Who knows? We could be living in a pandemic era in the future as well. What we need to do is we need to prepare ourselves for the future. And we need to understand that we need to...
Excuse me, somebody needs to switch off their mic, please.
Yes, please.
Someone has their mic on. Ankit, can you switch it off, please? Sorry, Vineet.
Yeah, no, so I think everybody in the industry is facing this tremendous problem of migrant labor going back. And here again, this is an opportunity to press the refresh button, and get it right this time. So when we bring back our people, we need to value our migrant workers as the government and the politicians or the society at large has recognized their importance. The industry also must welcome them back with good HR thought process, in terms of bringing them back skilled. The mid-level organizations should collaborate and reach out to us or other organizations to help them avail the best of the skilling opportunities. And I think a very important point I'd like to make over here, and I've been hearing this for 20 years in my career in the industry. The industry often says that, the workers, they would move jobs for 100 rupees or 200 rupees from one door to the other. The industry needs to understand, why would the worker move for 200 or 500 rupees, and why would the person stay even if that 500 rupee differential was being offered by somebody else? Which is where we need to value our workers and provide them an environment and clarity so that they come back to you and they stay with you.
You think they can come back? Sorry, I'm interrupting you. You think they'll come back? We can get them back?
I think they can, because I'll give you examples of industries I've been in touch with. Some of the OEMs in the automobile sector before the lockdown made a conscious effort to work with the government and send 8-9 buses of their workers back to the villages at their own cost. Now, this was a gesture made by the company that, we understand you will face this problem, and before the lockdown does happen, we will, at our cost, have the government support these buses to cross the borders, and we'll send you back. Now, this is a way to ensure that when the lockdown does open, those 440 workers are going to be willing to come back to the industry. So the small investment they have made at that point of time will reap, quantifiable benefits now. So there has to be a thought process for the worker. There has to be a intent to train them, time and again. And there has to be the government is offering the opportunity to the industry. The industry must come forward and discuss and find ways how they can take benefit of this, So I think we're ready to start. We're already working. We are moving workers from northeast of India, different parts of North India. Workers do move. It is going to be a challenge now in the COVID era.
Dr. Koshy, there's one last question for you. How do you think, this skilling, upskilling can be done in brief, if you could tell us?
Yeah, well, one of the biggest problem is the literacy and numeracy, iteracy, or what we call as the literacy of the basic education of our workers is dismally poor, is very well-known fact. And there the Southeast Asian countries and, countries like China, Korea have gone far ahead. And the second point is that the skilling effort itself, formal skilling I'm talking about, it has just been under 3% of the people who are, about 450 million, if you take the workforce, it is only about 3% who must have got some formal training. And unfortunately, entry-level training, which are mostly given under the government scheme, might become very redundant as the automation and artificial intelligence and, the cyber physical systems pick up post-COVID crisis. Because already I had run into an exporter yesterday who's setting up a new unit, which is entirely bereft of any sewing activity. It's purely on fusing or bonding or, it's a kind of heat sealing and all kinds of new machines which have come in. And obviously there is a risk what is embedded in the current skilling system, which is looking at very low-hanging fruits without necessarily giving productivity as, it was pointed out by Rahul Mehta ji, and the kind of lean management or the world-class manufacturing systems, they have not been really focused in even in the efforts which are generally going on at huge expenditure from the government. So there is a need to completely reboot or rewire the skilling system to look at the local needs. In Shimoga, what is the need for Shahi? What is in Jharkhand, the need for Orient craft? We have to look at very specific understanding of the kind of people which are required. Now with the reverse migration, it is even more important to have rural skilling targets which are given to people who are there in the engineering colleges or the nearby colleges, rather than setting up new, PIAs or, project implementation agencies, because that is not how the connectivity will happen. If there is a local engineering college or a local college, they can be asked to give a specific skill need of the location for them to execute. You can extend the consultancy assistance from an organization like NSDA or NSDC to equip them to do that. But if you just separate the local skill needs and keep on doing template-based skilling system, that might not be the answer. That is first point. Second point I have been telling is the run strategy. Reskilling, upskilling, and new skilling. Reskilling is when even a small attachment is changed, you require some reskilling. And when the kind of upskilling is about even the machine, which has become a completely automated machine, you require a different person to drive an automatic car in a way, or you will do upskill is great. From manual gears to a Ferrari or a Maruti 800 to Ferrari, you require a lot of changes in the driving habits of the person. Similarly, upskilling will require that kind of an effort. And new skilling, with almost 39% of the jobs in apparel sector projected in the Future of Jobs and Skills report to be undergoing drastic changes, and about 9 to 14% with completely radically changed skill levels required. You are looking at a completely new skill scenario with Industry Revolution 4.0, and that has really been accelerated with the COVID crisis. Digitalization, digital escalation, cyber physical systems, all these are going to happen. And with the labor arbitrage disappearing, now with the opportunity which has come through the unfortunate COVID crisis, there is also going to be a big push by capable entrepreneurs and the garment sector, both in domestic and export, to become more automated, because they would like to have a no-touch policy. They would like to have a lot of new areas which are coming in. And therefore, I think we are going to see a completely new skill paradigm. And that is where I think we are going to head. And the ministry like MORD and MSDE need to gear up to that. The Ministry of Skill Development has luckily sent a circular recently accepting theoretical content being delivered online being a good initiative. Similar thing has to be followed by all other ministries, so that the huge infrastructure created in the country do not now go waste, waiting for the students to return to the place. ATDC, for example, even before the lockdown happened on 21st onwards, all the 125, 130 centers have been giving digital classes. And you will not believe, today the certificates are automated and given to the faculty. About 130 of them, the TOT training which we conducted, the Google platform allows you to print the certificate and give you the same day. So we are going to have
wonderful.
we are
moving towards technology.
Yes,
Dr. Koshy,
yes.
One of the members in the House, and I would like to put this question also to Rahul and Jagdish, is how are we going forward in sustainability in the industry? Because that is, all the buyers are talking from raw material to refuse.
Can
that
I add
is the
to your...
shortcut.
Sorry.
Can you, talk about sustainability and how are we going to do that? Because along with compliance, this is what the customers will be looking at in the future.
Rohini, before Dr. Koshy or anybody else answers, I'd just like to add to your question is,
please.
As it is increasingly becoming, obvious that it is going to be a do or die situation for most, not only in our industry, but across all industries, are we likely to see sustainability take a backseat? So there are two parts to that question that Rohini started.
If I can answer it, I want to say that, the new McKinsey report shows that about 14% of the customers they interviewed are swearing by sustainability. And Philip Kotler's recent article, such a marketing guru, has identified 5 groups of customers post-COVID crisis. And one of the key points is simplification of life, which people are looking at. Reuse, recycle philosophies coming forward in very strong way. And India has such a long sustainability tradition, from our khadi to handloom to various efforts of rural focus which Gandhiji gave. There is a great amount of that kind of a thinking available in India. And I think if India has to really become a leader in global fashion, sustainability is the route. And that is emphasized by also the feeling that many of the fashion brands like, Louis Vuitton, Chanel, Gucci, Prada, they have gone through so many crises from the World War onwards, but they have all remained. And that shows that, if you can put strong values behind what Pallav said about the designers, behind their brands, and create that ethos of sustainability going forward, 10 years down the line or 20 years down the line, they can become global brands. But the investment has to start now. The day is now. The future is now.
The future is now, right.
Thank you, Dr. Koshy. I'd like to say something here. I think Dr. Koshy has given a roadmap, but practically, Rahul Mehta, Jagdish Hinduja, Chandrika, they are working in the factory floors. What is it mean to you, Jagdish, when the customers talk of sustainability and when you read about sustainability? I'd really like to know how we're going to action it on the floor for our customers. Why? What is sustainability to them?
Okay, I think, many of our customers also use sustainability as a lip language, right?
Right.
Without really meaning it. I'll put in simple
Exactly.
examples.
Very
They want,
true, Mr. Hinduja. Very true.
yeah, okay. I'll just give some small examples. I'm making a label for Calvin Klein. Now, the Calvin Klein label can be done in India itself. But no, they would rather have it come from China or Hong Kong, where their label was being done. And you ask them why. The problem there is they will have to approve the label twice, right? They don't look into the mileage and the money that goes into getting a label done in Hong Kong and bringing it to India and doing production for it. Similarly, in terms of packaging. So I'm not quite sure the buyers are using sustainability as a way to show themselves to their consuming public. They are not really wanting a really sustainable product. And I go with Dr. Koshy when he said we have a huge tradition of a lean and mean living, right? Yep. And Gandhiji is a tremendous example of what a minimalistic lean system is. And we, out of poverty or whatever, our country lives very, very lean and mean, right? And I think that time has come around. You see, there your Westerners are now beginning to appreciate a lean and mean system. But we as Indians, we are not yet there. We want to first go and become as rich and prosperous and live in Paris and London and so on, and then come back to our lean and mean system 20 years later from now.
So I would like to just add to that, because from the end consumer point of view and how the customer reacts on the floor. So, the whole idea of sustainability, I'm sure, is very big globally, and everyone is talking about it from global brands and everything. But I have not found one customer ever in any of our stores coming and asking me something which is using a word sustainability. So I don't know, because we had dedicated 3 racks from 3 good designers on the sustainable collection. For whatever reason, those racks never sold out. In fact, we were really pushing those 3 racks and the sustainable idea in terms of campaigns and our newspaper ads and things like that. But I don't know why Indian consumer is maybe they're still not ready, or they feel that maybe the pricing is very high of these sustainable products, or maybe they find that it is very it's not as stylish as the other products. So that is something which I can tell you, being on the floor. That's my thought process from the floor.
That's true. And Rahul, what would you have to say about this lip sync, as Jagdish calls it? I like that, sustainability.
I hate answering this question because it puts me into a very awkward situation of being honest or being politically correct.
And Dr. Koshy done the politically correct stuff.
Please be honest. Yeah, please be honest, Rahul. Please be honest.
Any philosophical ideas like sustainability, I feel goes through 3 or 4 stages. The first stage is when it occupies the minds and hearts of the academicians, where they get very excited about this amazing new idea that they have created, and they feel that the world will come to an end unless that particular idea is adopted by everybody. Having passed that phase, you enter the second phase, where it becomes a very hot topic for seminars and conferences, where a lot of people talk about it. There's a lot of applause at the end of the session, but really nothing happens.
Concrete.
And nothing concrete happens.
Yes.
The third phase is when it starts getting practiced by a few people who make it their USP. Perhaps some of them benefit out of it, profit out of it, some of them don't. And it is only in the fourth stage that the entire mass, the entire population adopts that particular concept. I think in India today, for as far as exports are concerned, it is somewhere between the third and the fourth phase. And as far as the domestic market is concerned, it is in the second phase, which is seminars.
Infancy.
So whenever I need a very intellectual touch to my conference, I invite Dr. Koshy.
Yes, exactly.
Whenever I want a very practical touch to my conference, I invite Jagdish.
Right.
That's
That's
the situation.
So today we have a balance.
well said, Rahulji. Well said.
But and having said that, let me say this. We at CMAI, along with Reliance IMG, we have formed what we call the SURE group, SU full stop RE, which is Sustainable Resolution Group, which is a resolution adopted by 15 of the top retailers and brands in India to move towards a sustainable process, sustainable
Wonderful.
products by 2025. Might be a year here and there now with this, but that's the effort that we are making. We are in fact setting up a sustainable desk whereby any member can ring in with their query as to, look, I want to make a sustainable pair of jeans. How do I go about it? Or where do I get a sustainable washing? Or how is this process sustainable or not environmental friendly, whatever. So we are going to set up all this. The whole thing has been delayed by 6 months because of the COVID issue. But I'm quite excited about it. And let me tell you this, that when I first was approached to set up this, I was very skeptical. And I said, "Theek hai, since I am president of CMI, therefore I will support this." But the more I spoke to the brands, the more I spoke to consumers, trust me, I was very, very pleasantly surprised. There are far more people who are aware of sustainability than what I imagined, even including the consumers. There is a state of confusion. People are not very sure. Consumers are not sure as to what is sustainable. For example, it is assumed that cotton is more sustainable than polyester. It could well be the complete opposite. So I think a lot more education has to be given in this direction. But the future, that I have no doubts in my mind, it is sustainability. And this is where I have been talking to the ministry, I have been talking to the industry, that like Sri Lanka made compliance as their platform to market the country as a whole, in the garment industry I'm talking of. Sri Lanka was the first country amongst the producing nations which took on compliance as their USP.
They called it garments without guilt.
Garments without guilt.
And Bangladesh called it, green factories now, the major thrust.
Yes,
absolutely.
But whether that now has come now yet or not, I'm not so sure. But Bangladesh took pricing, I think, as their platform. I think instead of going around trying to beat China in producing bulk garments and living in a dream world, I think India needs to present itself and position itself as the country where you can get sustainable production and sustainable product. So, and this is where I think I see a huge opportunity. Jagdish is right. As of today, unfortunately, and Christine, this is no reference to your organization, but buyers want us to do a lot of things which their consumers are pushing them to do, but are not wanting to pay the necessary cost. Price.
Tell me about it. Tell me about it.
So this is where I think the situation is. I think there's a huge opportunity, but I think buyers will also need to become practical and not just have a one-sided demand of sustainability. They will also have to pay for it, because in the short run, it is going to be a little more expensive.
Going to be more expensive, absolutely.
In the long run, perhaps it will even things out, but in the immediate future, slightly more expensive. And if the buyers can also cooperate, Indians are amazing. They have an amazing talent to pick on an immediate opportunity from not making a single protective equipment in February. Today, we are the world's second largest equipment manufacturers, PPE manufacturers. So I think the moment they see the buyers are paying 25 cents more, I think you'll find a whole lot of exporters moving to the sustainable wagon. So that's my sort of feedback from the ground.
And while we are,
could we just, Richa, could we just ask what was the name of the organization? You said you and Reliance have created an association.
This is CMAI, that's the clothing manufacturer.
Yeah.
CMAI and Reliance Images, IMG has created Sure.
NCTC you mentioned, Rahul.
No, Sure. This is different. This is for sustainability.
Yeah, SU full stop RE. So
SURE. Okay.
Sustainable resolution.
Thanks. We'll look it up and we'll get back to you on that, Rahul. It's very, very interesting. Thank you.
And while we are on sustainability, let me make a plug. We at Fiber to Fashion have just come out. We are getting ready to get into print Sustainability Compendium, which is the 5th edition. So you can, a lot of stories there on how to go the sustainable way. I hope people can, people would like to read it and enjoy it. Yeah. So Rohini, would you like to, wrap up the entire proceedings?
Yes, I think we've had a wonderful session today.
Yes.
I'm so happy to have Richa anchor the show today. And of course, the intellect with Dr. Koshy corrects our positioning, puts us into the numbers and tells us that this is the way we've got to go. And Jagdish, the practical man, Rahul Mehta, the experienced person, and the youngsters that we have here, Vineet Lall and Ojha, and of course Chandrika, who add to the whole gamut of the textile experience and the business of exports and domestic market. I thank you again very much, and I look forward to, I don't know what, a new era.
A new webinar. Another webinar.
Rewiring again.
I think we're getting a Zoom burnout now. But yes, getting back to work in a much more sustainable way. In terms of virtual itself will be sustainable. We'll be spending less money on traveling and meeting people. Hopefully that works in tandem with the real world and we get back to business as soon as possible. And of course, I'd like to knock at the door of the government to look at us and the MSME sector, especially for the issues that they are facing in terms of supply demand, in terms of labor issues, and not to push the factories so much they kind of keel over or just shut shop. And that is the scary part of it today. So I think that we'd really like the government to look at that in a very, very serious manner.
We must thank Christine, Rohini, Richa, and excellent panelists for making this so lively and very invigorating. Thank you guys for
Thank you, Dr. Koshy. Very nice to meet all of you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you to the participants and members
stay
of the
safe,
house.
stay well, stay healthy.
Stay in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jagdish. Thank you, Rahul, Dr. Koshy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richa.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
Vineet.
everyone.
Thank you very much, Richa. Thank you, everybody.
And
Nice meeting all of
Chandrika,
you.
I don't
Thank
see
you.
much of her. Bye, Chandrika. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Richa.